Belvidere North high school graduate is gaining recognition in the U.S. Air Force, not just for her leadership, but for her athletic skill. Brooklyn Messenger has been honored as one of the Air Force's top volleyball players, representing her base and her hometown with pride. Brooklyn Messenger, a second lieutenant stationed at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri and a former Air Force Academy volleyball star, has been named the Air Force Global Strike Command Athlete of the Year. The Belvidere North alum balances her role as a weapons flight commander with her passion for volleyball, competing at the base level in Kansas City tournaments and with the Department of the Air Force sports program. Messenger was named the MVP at a local base tournament and selected for the all-tournament team, an honor given to top players across all branches. She credits her success to a supportive chain of command and encourages other service members to get involved in the Air Force's growing intramural sports program.